Good hello everyone. This week we're looking at Michael J. Fox as promised. Now it's going to be a very different palm reading this week because it's been very difficult for me to obtain pictures of MJ Fox's palms. The hope had always been to look at the palms before and after, from young and old, just to see what the difference is in health respectively, to try and sort of see who Michael J. Fox is as a person, look at his accomplishments, his life events, but also see if we can determine how the palm has changed over time and what that can tell us about his awful disease. Unfortunately, that's not been very possible because it's been very difficult just to find images of him young as well as old. It seems he's always been a bit of a private person and has never really revealed his palms openly to the world, or at least all that much. It's been very difficult to find any images at all of open, clear palm shots. So in this video I am going to point out what I have discovered regarding Parkinson's disease in the palm and how the palm can show this. There is very, very little out there on the topic because it's never really been studied to any scientific length or any great length. Now, I mean, I've scoured all of my books and I've scoured the internet as well, and I've discovered a few things myself, so I'm going to disclose these findings, but also I'm going to talk about how his palms have changed over time, and more than that, who MJ Fox is by what his palms tell us. So just looking at the back of the MJ Fox's hands here, we can see already quite a bit. The thumb is quite flexible, and this shows one of a few things. Firstly, it's always associated with people who have possible people who are prone to joint issues and gynecological issues. It's always seen in people who are very flexible by their very nature. It's willpower here, and so if their will is flexible, then they are malleable to suggestion potentially, but also, I mean, this is quite vague because you can never really diagnose or conclude accurately from one sign or symptom alone, but it might just mean that he is very diplomatic in that he is able and measured in his ability to understand and accept other people's points of view and takes these things on board. But what this also means is this flexibility of the thumb. It points towards someone who is able to work very well, very efficiently for short stints. So they give everything they have for a short period of time, and then they need to rest. They find that actually they're very drained after that, and they need to have a nap, have a lie down. So an excellent worker in short stints. This is clearly a long Mercury finger here. A high set Mercury as well is always someone who had an excellent upbringing in terms of parental guidance and love and support. The Apollo finger here is long as well. I mean, it's almost as long as Saturn, which is, you always see this in A-list Hollywood actors. The Apollo finger is the finger of creativity and artistic expression. It's the finger of reputation and glory, vanity. It's how we see ourselves, other people seeing us. It's how we utilize our talents and show off to the outside world. Actors always have a long Apollo finger. Long Apollo fingers are always, also associated with people who were provided with higher amounts of testosterone during the second trimester of birth. It's linked to possible prostate issues in later life. And if this is seen in women, it's also seen as a possible osteoarthritis and arthritis issues, particularly in their knees. The Saturn finger is actually, it's quite short, and we know that the Saturn finger is short because when we compare the length of this with Apollo and Jupiter. And a short Saturn finger, it shows someone who is very optimistic by nature, very jovial, good sense of humor, loves a laugh. In some sense, it can be associated with people who are hippies almost, happy-go-lucky. They don't love bureaucracy. They are quite keen to... You often see it in activists. Charles Manson had a very short Saturn finger as well, and I'm not comparing MJ Fox to Charles Manson, but he had this very sort of optimistic, carefree, hippie, kind of anti-bureaucracy approach about his attitude, his whole attitude as well. And again, that's not to say that MJ Fox is a hippie as such. It's just that there's this. He's not necessarily going to follow the rules just because everyone else is. Jupiter appears quite wide at the third phalanx there, and that's always very commonly seen in A-list Hollywood actors as well. We don't see the inferiority complex, which we very often see with A-list actors as well, very successful people in general. This shows perhaps a potential kind of a love of indulgence when it comes to food, sex, alcohol. But I'm not going to take too much away from the back of the hands here. It was just to get a kind of general overall the idea of the fingers here. Now, the heart line in palmistry can be read both ways. I mean, I tend to read it in this direction, but some people read it in the opposite direction. And I have read that in one of my Indian palmistry books, at the beginning of the heart line, if there is an island that forms, this is a sign of a hereditary disease, and Parkinson's can be passed down through faulty genes. So take from that what you will. Michael has two rosettes. That's what makes up his bracelets here. And in medieval palmistry, the rosette was said to provide its owner with 25 to 30 years. So I don't take too much, from this. It's just that judging by medieval palmistry, Michael J. Fox has outlived his predicted lifespan. Now, I can appreciate these images aren't exactly all that clear, but what I do find interesting is that there is this kind of cutting line that comes in here and here, striking the fate line, and you can see it here as well. You can see it here too. Interestingly, it's clearer on the newer images than that of younger MJ Fox, so it sort of seems like this is stronger now. And partly this is just old age anyway, because the older we get, the more ingrained our lines become, the more definite the past is not going to change, and the future, well, there's less of it. So it's less of a possibility of that possible future changing, if that makes sense. So the older we get, the more ingrained and definite our lines become. And what does this mean? Well, I believe this is when MJ Fox moved from Vancouver to Los Angeles when he was 17 years old, and this is approximately 2,000 kilometers, so not an incredible distance, but you can see here on the lifeline reaches upwards onto Jupiter, and this shows at the age of 17, and it shows a person is trying to reach outwards to better themselves, to this is ambition. This is, I'm going to be a star, I'm going to move, I'm going to change my environment, and I'm going to make things happen. We see a direct correlation here as well, affecting achievements made here career-wise at the same age, a very young age. So I'm going to get right down to how Parkinson's can be seen in the palm. And this is a very different Sunday case study because of this. And I want to try and be respectful about this, and I don't want to use MJ Fox as a kind of case study for health. He was a hero of mine, and he still is, in fact. And in fact, when I was 17, I started working with people with Parkinson's, and this, I find this particular, this week, this one is crushing me, I've got to say. So I've got the clearest image I can find, really, here of MJ Fox, and to understand Parkinson's and how this shows up on the palm, first of all, we need to really understand a bit more about it in the first place. So here's the science bit. So the ways Parkinson's affects the body, and I've gone above and beyond here. I've spent ages doing this little diagram, and I've gone all sciencey, and it doesn't really matter. It's not all that relevant, is it? But I just thought this needed to be done. So Parkinson's affects the saliva glands, the lower esophagus, small intestine, pancreas, bronchus, larynx, outer layer of the heart, adrenal, medulla, and the parathyroid and ovary. Now, I know where some of these things are represented in the palms, so I can see where I might be able to connect some of the dots. But in terms of what's been written online, I'll get back to putting all of this into context within palmistry in a moment. Where Parkinson's can be seen in the palms is allegedly a wavy kind of broken and faint line, and a heavily islanded headline, or a headline with sort of not quite circles, not quite islands, but island-like obstacles in its path. Lozenges was the description that was used on this one website that I could find, and it was the only website I could find where someone had studied schizophrenia and palmistry in the palms, and these were the only two signs I could find out of all of my books, out of the entire internet. This is all that seems to be documented on Parkinson's in the palms. However, I have said, I mean, I'm not going to take too much away from this, because this is just one study, one person's findings. I'm a bit hesitant to take this as gospel. The sign here of having the heart line beginning as an island, if this is the beginning of the island, I read the heart line beginning in between. Generally speaking, I read the heart line in this direction, but many read it in the opposite direction. I'm not saying that I do it the right way, because in fact I probably don't. But the heart line is one of those lines that it's the only major palmar line which you can't really read in any one direction, because it doesn't have a set sort of path or route like the fate line, the life line. The headline is somewhat ambiguous, and then the heart line is even more so. The heart and the headline are just not reliable sources in terms of timing events. So an island over here, where the heart line supposedly begins, is said to be this, possible hereditary disease. Now the thyroid glands, the parathyroid glands, they can be seen on the second phalanx of Mercury. So I would probably look out for obstruction here, or exhaustion, fatigue, reduction, some sort of wasting, damage. And all of these things can be seen in various ways in the palms. And I'd look at the skin ridge patterns as well, particularly in this area. Now the adrenal medulla operates in tandem with glands in the brain, the pituitary glands, and it's from here they send a signal down, and it's just above the kidneys, and they secrete these hormones. So where this is represented on the palm, the suprarenal areas, the adrenal areas, are here and here. So I'd look in these areas as well. Now it affects the outer layers of the heart as well, so I would look along the heart line, particularly underneath the Saturn finger as well, for any defects. Now the bronchus is where the windpipe connects to the lungs, and so I would look on Jupiter for this, probably about here, just on the outer edge, upper outer edge of Jupiter. Some signs can also be seen for the lungs just inside the lifeline here. The nerves, the nervous system is of course seen in the Mercury line. How could we forget the Mercury line here? But also nerves are seen running down the lifeline around about here, maybe a little bit higher up than that actually, about here. Okay, this is an exact science, isn't it? Look at this, is a mess. I would look for, certainly look at the overall vitality of this person, and look for grilling on the Venus mount. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if someone has Parkinson's, you're going to notice it in their hands. They're going to be trembling. They're going to be doing this, pill rolling. It is very commonly seen as one of the signs or symptoms. And so these things get picked up. It's not as though there's ever been a need to use palmistry to detect Parkinson's. It's just I wanted to really just learn, I suppose, and understand palmistry better, and honour a hero of mine, I suppose. I mean, I'm probably not done it in the most tasteful of ways, but that's not how I wanted this to come across. The bladder is also seen sort of low down here. In Pluto, reproductive organs are seen a bit closer to the bridge Neptune here, so here and here as well. These areas will be affected. So I suppose it's useful if you saw disturbances in many of some of these areas. You could begin to kind of connect the dots, and that's what palmistry is about. It's detective work. It's identifying certain clues and coming to a conclusion from the circumstantial from the circumstantial evidence, they will point you in one direction, and that's what palmistry is. It's detective work. It's using logic and intuition. And we see everywhere, and on all these images here, we've got this spaced out Mercury, and in the left hand in particular, this shows that this inherent need for privacy, and really MJ Fox hasn't done all that much since 2014, I believe, is when he retired. No, 2021, I think, was when he fully retired. Obviously, due to his decline in health, but he has obviously continued work towards finding a cure and treatment in Parkinson's. There we go, I've just googled it. The MJ Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, is that what it's called? Yeah, that's it. And this strong long Mercury is still being put to use. His voice will be heard. We can see the headline here slopes pretty low down into Luna, which is in some respects is good. I mean, it's an excellent curve, it's an excellent arc. It's not the best of images, really. It's probably distorted findings slightly, but it does show obvious kind of creativity, deep imagination. But when a headline arcs too low down into Luna, it shows depression and at worst suicidal tendencies. And I'm not getting at that with this, but the left hand doesn't show the same kind of reaching downwards. Here we can see this picture was taken at the same time, so I've just put these two, the left and the right hand, together here, and you can see the headline. It reaches quite a bit lower on the right hand, and that just shows this kind of change in mental outlook. Obviously this is depression, and he's even said in a recent interview that he knows. If he were to die tomorrow, he's accepted this, and he's, in some respects, just sort of had enough of the fight, the struggle. He's had several falls and injured himself quite a lot of in quite quick succession, and almost lost his hand to an infection, which I believe is the reason for this here potentially. I'm not entirely certain, but it's all very tragic. And I'm pretty sure we have here an earth hand, which actually surprised me a little bit. There's definitely some airish qualities about this, but I would say this is an earth hand, and this sort of dependability, this reliability, this loyalty to the cause, as it would seem, is strong. I mean, just loyalty in general. We see a loyalty line here, strong loyalty line here, and this is always seen with someone who is very sort of dependable, practical kind of plodder. He's only ever married once, a very private person. These are all classic kind of signs of an earth hand. But as I say, there are some airish qualities as well to this person. This heart line is seen reaching right up onto Jupiter, and it shows this idealism, this kind of arc of a heart line, this length of it as well. It's similar to Bob Geldof, this kind of philanthropist outlook, and this is how he's thinking and feeling. On the right hand, we don't quite see the same thing, and that might well be due to health. And you can notice the Jupiter finger, the first phalanx of Jupiter. This also is an area that represents the pituitary gland, but also this kind of bulbousness of, in particular, Jupiter, and when you see it on Jupiter and Saturn, well, all of the fingers really, but in particular these two, it shows potential heart and lung problems. The life and the headline are joined for quite some time, and this is a classic sign of earth hands as well. They very commonly have this sense of cautiousness about them. Very careful, methodical, fact-driven planners. And you can see the fate line here at the age of 29. We can really start to see it fade, and this is at the age that he had this diagnosis. And at the same time, you can see a clear effort here to improve health as well. I can appreciate this as a very poor image, but as I say, it's just been very difficult with this particular case study to find decent images. As I say, this reading this week has been, I find this one really difficult. I find this just tragic. I wouldn't wish this disease on anyone. You know, when I was a kid, I thought that Michael J. Fox was probably the coolest man alive, and in many respects, I still do. So, thank you for watching, and next week, who shall I do? I'm going to do Kurt Cobain next week. So, let me know what your thoughts are on this reading. Let me know what what your thoughts are, and I will see you on the next one.